Hello, welcome to An Imperfectly Perfect Life, Life Unscripted. I'm Sherry Lead, your host, and today I speak with Cameron Normand. She is a step family expert. Here's a little bit of her background. She's an attorney, she's the CEO of Step Family Solutions, and she also hosts a podcast called The Stepmom Diaries. Through her coaching, courses, magazine, and events, she's helped thousands of stepmoms and step families navigate the blended family life. She also runs the premier Step Family Coach Academy, which certifies step family coaches through a research and expert based curriculum. Cameron herself is a certified step parent coach, and she's been featured on CBS Los Angeles, the CW Austin, and also in The Cut, Business Insider, CNET, Kiplinger, Scary Mommy, and the Today Parenting Team, along with a number of other media outlets. Okay, thank you for joining me. Let's dive in. Hi, Cameron. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's so great. I met Cameron. Well, we met through, would you call it a mastermind session
I think
or?
so. Yeah. A little business group mastermind. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and we're on opposite sides of the country. So we actually, attended a live event for this course that we were involved in New York, but we really didn't interact and had didn't have time to get to know each other until I went on my 50 states journey in 2023 and visited Cameron at her home, and that was quite incredible. You brought a group of women together, and it actually felt like home to me.
Yes, it was. We loved having you here. It was such a fun day. It really was. And it was a perfect weather to sit outside, and it was really lovely.
Yeah, it was magical. I can feel it as we're talking. And so, talking
Yeah.
about bringing people together, we're talking about step families today. And I told some of my girlfriends about you because, we, amongst girlfriends, we talk about some of the issues we're having. And especially now that I'm divorced and in this dating world, talking to my girlfriends who are either dating or married and experiencing these blended families. And they're really excited to hear what you have to say in your experience. So, first of all, how did you get involved in this arena of step families?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really goes back to I became a stepmom when I married my husband in 2017. And, like you, I'm a lawyer by training. I didn't practice, but I grew up in a step family. My parents were divorced. They divorced when I was about 8, and I kind of figured like I can do this stepmom thing. Like I know what being in a blended family is like. I can empathize with the kids. I, know about all that. And I don't know, I just didn't expect how challenging it was going to be. And also, being a lawyer, I mean, I was like, okay, so surely there's a handbook. Like, let me go online and see what I can find out. And I was kind of shocked that there was so little in the way of resources for stepmoms. And, I ordered a few books and found some websites, but just nothing really seemed like it was applicable to my situation. And
And
so
how old were the kids? How old were the kids when you dated and
yeah,
got
so
married?
I have four stepkids. They range when we got married, they ranged in ages from 8 to 15.
Mhm.
And so it was, I realized that there weren't many resources out there. And I ended up getting certified as a step family coach, step parent coach, largely because I just wanted to understand our dynamic. Like my husband and his ex have a very high conflict relationship. And I just kind of wanted to understand what was going on. And so then when I got certified, I really started wanting to work with other stepmoms because I was like, if I and I'm fairly well educated and fairly
Mhm.
smart. Like if I'm having a hard time finding stuff, like I can't be the only one. And so I started creating resources and putting them out there for other. And so that's kind of how I started getting into it. And
Wow,
so now
it's
I certify other step family coaches and have kind of built this little corner of the world that I love. I love helping step families. And now I really love helping step family coaches and getting more people out in the world who understand the research and, the academic stuff that's out there so that they can get good information out to people.
Well, and I usually ask this at the end, but as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, somebody's looking online and they really want your website up right now. What is your website?
Stepfamilysolutions.com. And
Step,
everything's on the website, and I'm on Instagram at Step Family Solutions.
great, stepfamilysolutions.com. So you mentioned that you grew up in a blended family. Your parents had
Mhm.
been divorced. Was your experience different than, when you got married with the four? I mean, obviously there's four kids versus just you as a kid, but did it feel like a very different experience than your experience that you understood as a kid growing up in that situation?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, my parents had a very high conflict divorce. And so going into like knowing that my husband and his ex had a high conflict divorce as well, I was like, well, surely like I know how to navigate all this, right? And um, there were some similarities, but it was just, I kind of thought, even though I had grown up in a divorced family, I still felt like, okay, well, this is going to be like instant family. Like, we're going to have these amazing holiday meals and, family game nights. And I'm going to be so fun. And these kids are going to love me because kids like me. I mean, I babysat growing up. How difficult could it be for kids to like me, And it was very, very different. And it wasn't that they didn't like me. I think that they did. They just kids don't choose to be in this situation and it's just a challenge.
And do you find now that you've worked with so many different step families, stepmoms, and stepdads as well, but I imagine a lot of your focus is stepmoms. I think it's the moms a lot of times that look for these types of resources in
For
general.
sure.
Do you find that there are common themes that run through, or is every situation so unique that it's sort of very bespoken type of coaching that you find yourself doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think there are some common threads. I mean, every situation is unique just because like every dynamic is different and the stuff that's going on and just like every family is different, right? But um I think a couple of common threads are sort of the difference in the reality of blended family life and what everybody expects it's going to be. And there's a lot of disappointment, I think, the first couple of years when a step parent is in blended family life. And it's not just her that's disappointed, by the way, like it's her spouse and probably the kids too, because everybody has different ideas about what this is going to be. And it almost never ends up the way you think it's going to be. And so you have to sort of figure out, kind of grieve those expectations and let them go and kind of figure out what you're going to do with the reality of the situation.
That's interesting because I know as just being a parent to my kids, letting go of what I think their journey is and what I think they should do has really helped me in just simply parenting, without even the parenting and blended
But
family
it's hard,
dynamics.
right?
Oh, it's really hard, and
Yeah.
it's I can't imagine if other adults were involved or with a lot of families. These both spouses have kids that you're blending together, and sometimes very close
Hmm.
in age, and that adds another layer. So this is an organic conversation and I don't have a set of prepared questions, but I want to ask you some of the questions that I see my girlfriends dealing with.
Yeah.
And, if there's anything that comes, stems off of that you think is important that we should know, please chime in. But thinking about some of my girlfriends, and I'm not going to mention anybody by name to protect the innocent, but for instance, I have a girlfriend who, similar to you, she got into a marriage where he has kids and about the same age as yours was when you married. And she didn't come into the marriage with kids with all great intentions. And it was a contentious divorce that he had. And he had dealt with issues where the kids aren't being brought to him at the set times. And they're having problems with, transportation and the other party not following up or holding the kids back out of spite or, for whatever reason, the kids can't visit this weekend, and making different excuses. in that situation, he's been in it a lot longer, so he's become a little bit passive because he's found it's been easier to be passive than to fight. And he appreciates to see, seeing his kids when he can. Her, she's more of a fighter. She's also, she works with lawyers. She has that type of wiring. In that type of situation, what do you usually suggest for the step parent coming in when they kind of see the one they love, the father or mother of these children being sort of run over by the other spouse?
Oh, that's such a hard position, and so many stepmoms feel that way. So I'll give you kind of my short answer, and then I'll expand on it a little bit. My short answer is you should not care more about your spouse seeing the kids than your spouse does.
Oh,
That's the sort of tough love answer, right? Is
yeah.
like you shouldn't be leading the way if your spouse isn't willing to do it. You know what I mean? The longer answer is that obviously everything is more nuanced than that.
Hmm.
Um, I think there are ways that you can um, kind of encourage your spouse, you know, certainly express your opinions to them. But at the end of the day, it is their relationship with the ex that they have to navigate. And you can be a really strong support to them. Um, but if they kind of don't want to fight that battle, you can't fight it for them.
Mm.
You can be there to talk them through it. You can give them all of your best advice and counsel as a spouse. Um, and, ultimately, if they're in a situation where, their ex is withholding visitation or anything like that, like they probably should talk to a lawyer and see what the divorce decree says. And, that's beyond the scope of what I do, but, that's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a hard situation because it hurts to see the person you love going through this awful situation, and you know you can sort of see things as a step parent a little more clearly than parents can sometimes. I say that the parent always has those lenses of love on where everything the kids do is you see flaws, I
Hmm.
think, a little more clearly sometimes. And so it's hard because you can't like drag them into seeing that with you. You have to kind of let them figure it out. So sometimes you may have to set some boundaries and say, you know what, I I hate this for you. I wish that, you I wish that the ex wasn't, withholding the kids from you. And, I'm here to support you. Um, but I don't want to have a lot of conversations about it because it hurts me to see her hurting you. And you may have to say, like, I don't want to see the emails she's sending. I don't want to go to school events where I have to run into her because, it makes me mad that she's doing all this to you. I mean, there just may be some
Yeah.
things that you have to put in place. And like I said, every situation is very unique, but
Yeah, as you
that's
were talking, I'm thinking at one point you actually have to protect yourself from going down
absolutely.
that rabbit hole and making it your issue, or carrying the sword, because
Yes, absolutely.
as you said, it's really, despite how much you love your partner, it really is their
It's not your
journey.
battle.
It's
Yeah.
not, yeah. And I can just imagine, I think of I'm such a planner. And if I was in that situation, I can imagine myself planning around,
Oh, it
these
would drive me crazy.
visitations. And we try, yeah. And if they're not happening, me kind of, lashing out on my partner saying, oh, we planned all this. We didn't go on vacation because you were supposed to have the kids. And
Yep.
now look, and
Yeah, it can cause
for,
problems with your partner.
yeah, for your own sanity's sake, you have to just let go and say, okay, we're going to plan this. And if it doesn't happen this weekend, it's out of my control. And
Yep.
I have a backup plan. Maybe I have more time to read my book at home, or we have more
Yeah.
time together, and just realize those things are out of your control, and to let
And
go and
that's
breathe.
actually, sorry to interrupt, but that's
Yeah,
actually
go
a
ahead.
really great point is talking about control. And I'm sure you've read the new Mel Robbins book,
I
Let
haven't
Them.
yet. Ah,
Oh my God, it was like made for step families. She only mentions step families a couple of times in the book, but it's something I've been talking to the step parents I work with for a long time, which is there are going to be things that happen in step family life. So many things that are out of your control. And you have to find a way to really only focus on the things that you can control, which, what does that look like, right? You can't control a lot of times where you live because you've got to live in the school district where the kids are. You can't control when you take vacation, especially if you've got, an ex that's withholding visitation, an example you just mentioned. What can you control? You can control how you react to that. You can control the type of home that you build. You can control, the type of step parent you are, the loving actions that you take every day. So, in step family life, it's a really limited universe of things that are within your control. But if you can let some of the other stuff go, which is really hard, but if you can let some of the other stuff go, focus on what you can control, it really does make all the difference.
Do you, with your step family coaching, I just think this would be so good to the hash through before you get married, because a lot of these things you don't realize are going to happen and come up, or you're so in love, you think, oh, we have this beautiful, oh, I could live in that neighborhood. No, but the reality of actually living a life where you could feel stuck. I mean, everything that you're saying could, if you don't handle it correctly and have the mindset to look for the things that support you, you could really feel stuck. And I think feeling stuck is one of the worst feelings in the world.
A
And
hundred
so
percent.
do, yeah. And so with your step family coaching, I imagine it doesn't happen as often because people don't realize this is necessarily available to them. But man, can people come and say, hey, we're planning on getting married. Can we start talking about some of these issues or alert us to what issues?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yes.
I would. I mean, look, I think if people don't usually find out about what I do until after they're already like knee deep in the muck and trying to like figure out how to get out of it, or how to, handle it, not get out of it, but how to handle it all. If somebody found me, I should say, I do have people find me like when they're engaged or whatever, and being able to front load these conversations and kind of deal on the front end about, things like expectations and how things are going to look, and even things as simple as like how you're going to handle your finances. Like
Hmm.
those are, how are you going to handle holiday gifts? Like who's going to buy them, who's going to, you know what I mean, like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So many step parents get into it, and just even something little like that can make them crazy because they're like, maybe their relationship with the stepkids is really rocky, and they're like, well, so I have to spend my money to buy gifts for these kids that don't even like me, I mean,
Hmm.
maybe it's not a big deal. I mean, for me, I was always I'm a gifts are my love language, so I was always all in on doing
Hmm.
gifts for the kids, but that's a sticking point sometimes, or like, are you expected to contribute to college or cars, or, that some of those conversations that don't even occur to people to have are really important to have before you get in the middle of all the conflict. And especially if there's a high conflict X on the other side, getting some
Yeah.
tools up front to navigate that is just really important. Like you said, to take care of yourself in this journey. I mean, um, it's really easy for step parents to become so involved in the step family and so wrapped up in what's going on, whether it's drama or whatever, that they do kind of forget that their needs
Hmm.
also should take a priority at some level, you know.
Yeah.
It can be really all consuming.
And how about the other end of the spectrum? Let's say there's a divorce and the ex-spouse is really close to the new spouse's family still. And so he or she gets invited a lot. I have a friend whose current husband, his ex-wife, is very close to his siblings, and the kids are close to their cousins. And the family still invites her to everything. And she kind of takes the queen bee role at all the family events still. And my friend is younger than her, but she didn't come in right away when the divorce happened. She had nothing to do with the divorce, just happens to be several years younger than her husband. Very bright, capable, woman that I mean, she's, in other words, she's not the gold digger that people may assume when they look and see a younger woman coming into an established family. But that being said, the first wife is the queen bee, and still invite to family events. How do people manage that? I mean, do they put their foot down and tell their spouse she no longer can come, and then therefore maybe alienating the kids because they want their mom there? Or how do you navigate that type of relationship?
Yeah, that one's hard too. Especially if there's conflict with that former spouse. I think, you know, again, without knowing kind of all the particulars, it's a great example of Mel Robbins' let them theory, which is like, okay, they want to, the in-laws want to keep inviting the prior spouse, let them. Like, just go, be gracious, be your amazing self. And if she wants to take, a queen bee position, and that may be because she feels a little threatened, you know what? Let her. Um, the most important thing really is that you don't want to create a situation where the kids feel torn or they feel like you're trying to shove mom out of the picture. And if you put your foot down and say, absolutely not, don't invite her to anything, it's going to set up like a power struggle that you're not going to come out on top because mom always does. The biology is just too strong. Um, Now, that being said, if the husband wanted to have some discreet conversations like, hey, it'd be great to get together, like just with our family,
Mhm.
I think that those conversations are certainly appropriate. But I would never, as a step parent, I would never take on those conversations because that can set up the power struggle. It really needs to be the spouse that does that. And I would start out with a little bit of a soft touch around that. And then ultimately they get to decide what family events they want to show up at. And
Mm.
if she's invited to every family event, they may self-select we're not going to go to this one.
I love the let them theory. That makes so much sense. And also, as you're talking, again, step family step family coaching, which I never had thought of before, or I never knew it existed. This just sounds right for it to get those two, the new relationship together so that, a lot of it is just feeling supported and heard by your current
A
spouse,
hundred percent. Yeah.
and having them acknowledge like, yeah, this is a really difficult situation for you. And also you being able to listen. It's difficult for that person too, because this is his, maybe siblings that he's close to, or the cousins and his kids, and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to rock the boat, and having a coach in there to help each side being heard can do a lot for healing. Um,
And ultimately, you can't tell your brothers and sisters who they can and can't be in touch with. And if they really want to stay in touch with the ex, like, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could cut off contact, but that seems like that's not a great solution. And um, I think they're hard conversations to have. They really
mhm.
are.
And before we got on and started recording, I asked you if there's specific, like, because of the ages of the kids are under preschool, there are these problems. The kids are, grade school, these problems, high school, these problems, older, kids, adults already, these problems. I asked if there are specific categories, and you kind of mentioned sort of, but at the same time, everything is very unique. I want to talk a little bit about, and maybe this is because my own situation, dating at 55, and most people have adult children now. My children are in their 20s. Most of the people, I'm in a serious relationship right now, and his kids are in their 20s, mid to late 20s, and they're fabulous. And I feel like I'm really lucky in this situation because they're independent. My kids are fairly independent, and both both of us have very kind kids and very polite kids, and somewhat similar in nature. So um, it's been easy, but we're in the dating stage. We don't live together. We're not engaged. We're not, we haven't blended. And I imagine actually blending takes it to a different level.
Mhm.
What are some of those challenges that you see with people who are in similar situations where they do come together as older adults and their kids are are already out of the house, do they still have issues with step families?
Absolutely. And it's funny because you sort of think like, oh, the kids are grown, no big deal. Like it's just not an issue. But there definitely are issues. And it's funny. And I know I mentioned to you before we started, my husband's parents had been divorced for almost 20 years, and they both got remarried the same summer we got married, which was so cute. They were in their 70s when they got remarried, and like they both married these just amazingly lovely human beings. Like
Yeah.
we just adore all of them. But it's interesting. And they, I will tell you, did have a situation where the kids are all like happy for them. And, everybody's, both of the people that they married had lost their spouses to cancer. And it just, I don't know, everybody was very happy, for everyone.
Hmm.
But there are situations when adult kids are involved where the adult kids are like, well, okay, so let's say, dad, you lost, mom died, however long ago. Great that you found love, but like you're loaded, and what does that mean for my inheritance? Right? And
Yeah.
or, hey, mom, I'm glad you've met this great guy, but like when it comes to making end of life health decisions, if somebody's got to decide who's going to pull the plug, is that me or is that your, this Johnny come lately
Mm.
spouse, there are a lot of things that can come up that, you don't necessarily think are going to be an issue. And the biggest thing I recommend for people later in life is like have the prenup, like have that conversation so that the kids don't have to worry about any of it. And decide before you get married, like, what is the health directive going to be? Is it going to be that I want my spouse to work with my kids to make decisions? Is it, I don't know. I mean, what does that look like? And it can be tricky also when there are grandkids and you think about inheritance and like, well, I'm going to leave my kids this and I'm going to leave the grandkids, but I'm not going to leave your grandkids anything. And I mean, these are just hard
And
conversations,
and this is all, see, I haven't looked at prenups or any, I only know about wills. So this is all something that someone can decide ahead of time in a prenup in addition to a will as far as their intention of where things are divided, I guess. Is
Well,
that
the will would be the place for that, I think. And
okay?
again, like I
Yeah,
am a
we're not
lawyer by
talking,
training. I
we're
don't
not, we
practice.
don't
Like
have
go
our
get a
legal
lawyer, but
hat. We don't have our attorney hats on,
not wearing our
but
attorney hats.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the will would be the place for that. But for the prenup, I mean, that definitely can get into these are my assets, these are your assets, and you know, this is how things are going to work. And I think just kind of clarifying a lot of that, and that gives kids some comfort, especially, if you're in a situation where you're, upper middle class, maybe you have two homes that are coming in, you're going to keep both homes and, what happens to those in the event that something happens and just providing some clarity, I think is really helpful in those situations.
All I can think of is that saying, is that from a movie, More Money, More Problems? I mean, as you're talking, I mean, it's like, wow, you have to, there's always an issue, there's something. Uh, but I guess when it comes down to it, doesn't, no matter what the age of the kids, no matter, how long you've dated, the fact that you're coming with a history, you're not right out of college where you both have nothing, or right out of high school or whatever, where
Yeah,
you both have nothing and you come together and everything's built together. You come with something, and the more you can talk about some of these things, or even talk to an expert who actually knows some of the issues that you don't even know ahead of time, can save you a lot of pain, make it much smoother, and maybe if the kids are of age, you can have conversations with the kids to see what issues they might have.
absolutely. And I definitely encourage that. I mean, I generally think that like whether you're talking about kids or spouses or whatever, like the more communication you can have, the better, just in general. But I love the idea of sitting down with the kids and like, hey, this is going to happen. Um, None of it's going to affect you or, any of that. Like have the conversations though, like what questions do you have? How, what hesitations might you have or what are your
Mhm.
thoughts, and I think that's definitely a great idea.
Wow, this has been so excellent. I could ask questions all day long because I have so many, friends in this situation. And, well, with the divorce rate, this is so common and it's not talked about a lot. And the reputation of just, step parent, blame the fables and all of that because
I
it
know.
already comes with this idea that this person has all this judgment on them and they're not the number one, they're the number two. And they all this judgment's already existing that this you're walking into that makes it so difficult when you're trying so hard.
It does. It does. Yeah, it really does. And it is so important to have these conversations and, get as much of this kind of out in the open and not, you know, I don't know. I think that for so long there was this stigma for step parents and particularly for stepmoms. And, I think at the end of the day, most stepmoms just want to do a good job and have a
Mhm.
family. I mean, they're not looking to like break up anybody's relationships. I mean, there are bad step parents out there, sure, just like there are bad parents, but on the whole, I think the more resources that we can provide them, because a lot of people, just like parents, make mistakes because they don't have the information,
For the support.
or the
Oh,
support. It's
yeah,
a
because
very
a lot of
lonely
this
position sometimes.
you don't want to talk to your girlfriends or to other people about your family situation because you don't want it to get out in the community, despite sometimes having really close girlfriends. So it's nice to have somebody separate that you can talk to these things about that has knowledge. Okay, where can people find you? Give us your website again, and I'll have everything in the show notes, including Cameron's bio that I will record later on when I do the introduction recording for this podcast, but I will have all that information in the show notes. But for anybody who is just listening, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my website is stepfamilysolutions.com. I've got all the different ways you can work with me there. And then I'm on Instagram quite a bit at Step Family Solutions. And that's my handle for all social media. I'm on Facebook as well and TikTok. So, yeah, definitely if you have listeners who are going through anything with step family stuff, in big air quotes, feel free to reach out to me.
Sounds perfect. Okay, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
know this is much needed. Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks.
Okay, and that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Please subscribe, like, follow, contact me. Let me know what you thought. If you have any other show ideas, I'd love to hear about them. And oh, by the way, I didn't tell you how my TEDx went in Eustis that I did this past week. It was amazing. Thank you, everyone, for your support. I will be posting the video when it comes out, hopefully in a month. And next week is the book launch at For a Table for 51. That link also for pre-sale is in the show notes as well. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye.